Hey everyone, we're about to jump into the pretty tricky world of ethics in educational technology. And believe me, it's a topic that goes way beyond a simple list of do's and don'ts. It really gets to the heart of what we do as professionals in this field.
So, to kick things off, let's start with a real-world dilemma. Imagine this. You're on a research team, you're months into a project, and the final deadline was, well, it was last week. You're about to launch when, boom, the software you're relying on just stops working. Turns out it's a limited version and you need to upgrade to Pro to finish. One of your teammates pipes up, "Hey, I can find an illegal crack for that online in like 2 minutes." What do?
For a second there, the team actually thought about it. But in the end, as the source material puts it, their ethical sensibilities won out. A professor just grabbed their wallet, pulled out a personal credit card, and paid the $79. A pretty small amount of money, right? But a huge ethical call to make when you're under that much pressure.
But here's the thing. In those high-stakes moments, professionals aren't supposed to just rely on their gut. There are actually formal guides out there, designed to help them navigate these exact kinds of tough situations.
And in this field, that guide is the AECT Code of Ethics. AECT, that stands for the Association for Educational Communications and Technology. And this code, it's pretty much the field's official answer for what to do in these ethical gray areas. It's all built around 3 core commitments.
First up, there's the commitment to the individual, the learner. This part is all about protecting students. It means we should be encouraging them to think for themselves, keeping their data private, making sure they can actually access the programs, and, crucially, designing materials that don't push harmful stereotypes.
Second, the code says we have a commitment to society as a whole. This is the bigger picture. It means you've got to be honest in your work, you can't use your position for your own personal gain, and you have to play fair with everyone you work with. Simple as that.
And the third and final principle is a commitment to the profession itself. This covers a lot of ground, from treating your colleagues with respect and fairness to always working to get better at what you do and, respecting things like copyright law.
Okay, so we've got this detailed code of ethics. Sounds good, right? Problem solved. Everyone knows the rules. Well, as it turns out, having a rulebook on the shelf is one thing. People actually, reading it and using it, that's a whole other story.
Because when you start to dig into the research, you start to see some really big cracks in this ethical foundation. It kind of seems like for a topic that's supposed to be so important, it's weirdly missing from the day-to-day conversation.
So, check this out. Researchers Moore and Ellsworth did a deep dive into the top academic journals in the field, and what they found was kind of shocking. In the big ones, like Educational Technology Research and Development or Instructional Science, ethics almost never came up. We're talking 1.5% and 1.2% of articles, respectively, barely a whisper. Let's just focus on that ETR&D number for a second. Put it another way, a staggering 98.5% of the research published in one of the leading journals in our own field doesn't even mention the word ethics. That's a lot. As the researchers themselves put it, all of this starts to paint a troubling picture. There's this massive disconnect between the values we say we have in our official code and what we're actually talking about, researching and publishing.
But wait, it gets even more complicated. Because in today's world, everything is global. And that makes you wonder, can one single code of ethics really work for every single person, in every single culture, everywhere?
This brings us to a classic philosophical showdown. On one side, you've got ethical universalism. That's the idea that there's one true morality, one set of rules that applies to everybody, no exceptions. But on the other side, you've got cultural relativism, which says, not so fast. This view argues that moral standards are all about local culture and context.
So you can see the problem, right? Can a code of ethics, which was most likely written from a specific, probably Western, cultural viewpoint, actually be relevant for a huge, diverse, global community of professionals? It's a question that really challenges the whole idea of having one rulebook to begin with.
And this is where we get to pivot to a really powerful new way of looking at all this. What if we stopped thinking about ethics as a list of rules to follow, and instead started thinking about it as a design problem that needs to be solved? This idea comes from a philosopher named Caroline Whitbeck, and she argued that moral problems are, at their core, practical challenges. The goal isn't just to pick the right answer off a list. The real goal is to creatively design the best possible responses and solutions, just like you design anything else.
Now, this is a huge shift in thinking. It's moving away from what you could call a compliance mindset, where you're just following rules to avoid getting in trouble. Instead, you move to a proactive,
design mindset, where you're always trying to create the absolute best outcome for every single person involved.
This whole idea actually has really deep roots. For centuries, philosophers have talked about the mind having 3 domains. There's the cognitive, that's all about knowing and thinking. The affective, that's feeling. And then there's the conative, a word we don't use much anymore, but it means acting or willing. And look where ethics fits, squarely in the domain of action.
And this really brings us to the key takeaway. Ethics isn't some passive thing you just study. It is an active, goal-oriented process. It is not enough to just know what's right. The real work is in designing and building what's right, giving our ethics the same creativity and energy we'd give to designing a brand new course.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. The next time you start a project, a new training module, a piece of software, whatever it is, ask yourself this. Are you just checking boxes and following the rules, or are you actively designing for the greater good?